Well,
be
talking
right
about
there
that,
looking
Duran, I
good
think
too.
people need to realize that, like, if you really want to become if you really want people to view you as something, you need to become it inside first, and
Yeah.
then as a goal, you have no issue living and walking in that light, right? When you can look in the mirror and say, "That's what I want to do." They say, "Oh, keep it private until you arrive," and that's
Yeah.
not necessarily the way to go. When you speak it out in public, the people around you start holding you accountable to those things, and that helps you, and they start boosting you up and lifting you up. And I think that that's something that we can actually enhance in our culture by making that shift, that mental shift. Speak it out loud. You want to be a general manager? Tell people, and don't be afraid when they say you can't do it. Just go out and continue to execute. But remember, you are your first business and your first investment.
We're rolling. All right, everybody. Thank you so much in advance. My name is Duran Cage. I should say gratitude, right? I got my shirt on, but so much gratitude in advance for those of you that have been rocking with this podcast, this show, and I really like to call it a conversation. I really don't even like the word podcast. But today's episode is going to be great. This is a gentleman that I've known, man. I think a lot of this happened about 3, 4, 5 years ago. We've been talking on the phone and connecting through LinkedIn, through social channels, and so I'm excited to have this young man, this brother right here, on the show to share his light, because that's exactly what attracted me to him. And so, of course, I've got my intro here, so I'm gonna read this thing on out to make it proper for Rasean. So today, on Driven by Intelligence, we're bringing on a leader who embodies what it means to guide with both heart and hustle. Oh, I love that. A true example of a modern automotive leader who knows it's not just about moving metal, but it's about moving people. From developing high performing teams to creating memorable customer experiences, he's someone who shows that real intelligence isn't just data points or strategies. It's the ability to connect, inspire, and evolve. I agree with that. He's a mentor, a motivator, and a student of the game, always learning, always leveling up. Let's get a big welcome round of applause to Rasean. Let's go. How do I say your name? Is it say your last name for me?
Hey, that was one heck of an intro, Duran. Rasean Comeaux. My
There we
whole
go.
life,
There
say your last name.
But yeah,
Say
man,
it for
thank you
me.
so much. Thank you. And but go ahead, let's
Thank
get
you.
started. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and I always like to hear how you got into the game of automotive. But give us the history.
Sure, man. Number one, I want to thank you for inviting me onto this podcast. And I don't know if you noticed, Duran, but this is the first automotive podcast that I'm able to contribute to. And I wanted it to be like one of those things where something that I believed in. I'm a strong proponent of only being involved in things that I believe in. And
Mm-hmm.
I also wanted it to be with someone that I know is doing great things in the industry and right by people. So this is my first podcast, and I just want to thank you for inviting me on and giving me an opportunity to share my story.
Gratitude, man. That means a lot. Thank you. I'm glad you're here. This is gonna be fun.
Yeah, man. So I mean, listen, I'm gonna talk about my like how I got into this business, and a lot of that comes from like my background. So I grew up in my father's house. My father was a drill sergeant when I was growing up, and this I call this man my father because he actually like showed me so many things about leadership and how to be a man. I never knew my actual birth dad. Like I never knew my dad. But this man was a father to me, and coached me and taught me along the way. And being a drill sergeant, and my mother was in the military as well, so we moved around a lot. So I was on like a different, address or military base almost every 3 years. So I actually remember I was neither one of my parents had went to college, so I was kind of thinking like, well, what am I going to do? And I was sitting back and I was watching. I was in Germany and we were watching VHSs of a different world, and I was like, I want to go to an
That's it.
HBCU, and and I want to go to college. I want that experience. And I saw like this movie School Days, and I wanted
Yeah.
that whole experience. So I said, well, what's the number one HBCU out there? And I looked it up, and it was, I think I was looking at like Business Week or US Weekly, and it was like the
Mm-hmm.
college report. and it had Howard University. And
Yeah.
so I said, all right, I'm going to Howard University. And everybody was like, where? I was like, it's in DC. So I had come to DC in eighth grade with a singing group in
Oh wow.
school to sing at the White House. So I fell in love with DC. So when I found out Howard was in DC, I lost my mind. And I said, I'm going there. And so I actually, saved up a bunch of money working a summer job at a daycare. And before that, my first actual job, I was 14 years old. I remember my father bought a riding lawnmower, a nice shiny red riding lawnmower home. He must have been like the first Home Depot client or something. But he
Mm-hmm.
buys the riding lawnmower and he brings it home. And I said, oh, that's my new lawnmower because I'm 14. I'm thinking I'm gonna learn how to drive.
Yeah.
This is how I'm gonna like cut the grass. And he said, no, 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 this is my lawnmower, but that one over there, the old lawnmower, that's yours now. And I said, okay, what do you want me to do with
Yeah.
that? I cut the grass after you or before you? He said, no, I cut our grass from now on. And everything I taught you on how to cut our grass, I want you to go out in the community. I want you to knock on all the neighbors' doors and I want you to offer your services to cut their grass. And he said,
Wow.
whatever they're charging, you charge half. And I think at the going rate at the time we were in Georgia, and the going rate was like $40 for the front and the backyard. It was like
Mm-hmm.
$20 a yard, right? And we talking Georgia now. These ain't little baby yards. I mean, these
Oh
like
yeah.
large yards. And I went out and I started offering everybody, $20 to cut the front and the back of their yard. And I remember at some point on my full Saturday and my full Sunday was booked up cutting lawns, and that was my first job. So shout out to him for giving me that lawnmower. Shout out to that first lawnmower, right? Um,
Yeah.
but I said I'm going to Howard University, worked a summer job, and saved up some money to get to DC. And I remember I was living in Germany when I graduated high school, and I got on a plane in Germany, and I landed at Dulles, right outside of DC. I
Mm-hmm.
had $175 in my pocket and two bags and an acceptance letter to Howard University. No scholarship, just an acceptance letter.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I remember I get off the plane with my two bags, and I'm looking around, and I asked a guy, I said, well, which way is Howard University? He said about 40, 50 miles that way. And that's kind of like what started my journey here in the DC metropolitan area. And for about, I went to Howard, but just like many young kids, I started running out of money, and so I had to get a
Mm-hmm.
job. I
Yeah.
started picking up a job here and there. I looked in a newspaper one day and it said, make $70,000 a year, have fun at work, learn how to be a manager. And I answered the ad, and it was for Domino's Pizza Team Washington. And I got into working for Domino's Pizza back with when Frank Meeks, who invented 30 Minutes or Less, was still running the
Mm-hmm.
company. And man, I learned so much during that 3 years at Domino's Pizza that I was so compelled to go to Starbucks. And I managed for Starbucks for 3 years
Wow.
after that. And I had the opportunity to open the first Magic Johnson Starbucks in the state of Maryland, right here in Hyattsville. And that was a great time to do something monumental like that, to work with a Magic Johnson, to
Mm-hmm.
expand a minority brand into a community and into a space that wasn't necessarily Starbucks. I'm talking about wasn't necessarily in the minority space at the time. So that was a very critical point in my career that really touched me in my heart. That gave me the idea that hey, you can be an entrepreneur too. So after about 20 years in retail as a manager, managing for best of breed brands,
Mm-hmm.
a GM, a store manager. I've been looking at P&L since I was like 21 years old.
Wow.
I said it's time for me to go in the car business because it was always a passion of mine. And for whatever reason, the license wasn't good, or
Mm-hmm.
I got a young daughter. I was like, okay, when my daughter like gets out of high school, then I'll get in the car business when everything gets settled. I was just really kind of like pushing it off, but I pushed it off to just about 6.5, almost 7 years ago. It was like 2018.
Okay.
I said, I'm going to get in the car business. And that's where I'm going to take my entrepreneurial spirit and my drive, and that's where I'm going. And I literally was going around interviewing dealerships where I wanted to work because obviously they weren't interviewing me, I was interviewing them. And for any young people
Yeah.
out there that are watching this podcast and you want to take something away early, you're the commodity.
Yep.
You are the talent. And so when you carry yourself that way and you present yourself that way, that's when doors will begin to open for you, not just, just things that, that are available. These are things that you can actually say, I want to go do that, and then you go and do it. So I walked into an Infinity store, and what happened was this group, Passport Auto Group, calls me up and they said, "Hey, come on down and interview with us." And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Fantastic!" So they had like a big BMW store that they were recruiting me for, and I go down there and they said, "Hey, we're going to meet you in the Infinity store. So meet us across the street in the Infinity store." And I can see this big behemoth BMW store across the street, and it looked phenomenal. But I'm in this Infinity store, right? And I'm looking around, and there's not even cars on the showroom floor yet, right? Because they had just opened this Infinity store. It was December 1, 2018. They opened the store. I walked in the interview at a December 15th. Um, so, I'm in there and I'm interviewing with the management staff, and they're like, uh, you know, what do you want to do? I said, I'm here for a management job. And they were
Oh
like, what?
wow.
Excuse me? I was like,
Yeah.
you got to sell cars before you can manage in this industry. So, my line was, great. Give me a desk and a phone, and let's see what I can do. I'll show you, what I've learned over the last 20 years in traditional corporate retail.
Yeah.
And they said, well, all right, we'll see about that. And I said, well, how come there's no? I want to talk about this store right here. And they said, what do you mean? I said, I want to talk about the Infinity store. And they said, well, we just opened the doors. And I said, well, how come there's no cars on the showroom floor? And like the VP, he says, well, we imported these floors, these tiles. They're from Italy, so we have to get the insurance on the floors before we can bring the cars in. All I heard was ching, cha-ching, ching,
Yep.
ching. There's some money in this industry that I need to know a lot more about. So coming from, building stores over the years, when I was a store manager, they would always, every company I was in, they would give me the worst store and say, hey, see what you can do with
Mm-hmm.
this. And I would turn it around. And to me, a new store opening was the best opportunity I could have to get into automotive. So I said, actually, I want to bring my talents here. I want to work here at Infinity.
Oh
And they were
wow.
like, okay, we guess. Like, and I actually interviewed the GM after that, and his name was Issa Williams. And much like me, um, he had he had wanted to go to Howard University, so he went to Howard University. Much like me,
Oh
his
wow.
hustle drove him off of campus before was able to actually obtain his degree. But he was a successful general manager. He's a real estate mogul. He was into like stocks and forex, like really being successful back then. And I looked at him and I said, "That's somebody that reminds me of me and my
Mm-hmm.
journey." So as I'm looking at Issa, I'm thinking, if Issa can do this, so can I.
There you go.
And I said, I want to work. I want to work here. So of course Issa said, "Come on, let's do it." And so I remember, within the first week, Issa set me down. He said, "Well, what are your goals?" And I said, "Well, in 5 years, I want to be a general manager." And everybody was like, him and the other two managers in the room at the time. This is like my first coaching session. They're like, "What? You can't be a general manager in this business in 5 years?" And I said, "Okay, I think I can. So let's see what happens." So I ended up, selling 20 to 30 cars a month in a store that was doing 80 to maybe 120 max a month, this Infinity store. So, after selling 600 cars in, 28 months, so just over 2 years, I was promoted to sales manager. So that's my beginning path. And during that time, I had started my LinkedIn page. I had started,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, really getting involved with video on social media. And as I'm getting involved with video on social media and I started my LinkedIn page, I'm like, okay, I only want to connect to people in the automotive space who care about people, right? Like, I
Yeah.
don't want to, like, if it's just, if it's kind of like chest beating and yeah, I'm the best, and, I've experienced that for the last 2 years or so. And I knew, to be fair to automotive, I mean, there's a lot of industries like that, but I knew what the way I wanted to craft my LinkedIn social media, because I had built social media since MySpace. So I had everything from MySpace to
He brought
Facebook
up MySpace.
to Instagram, right? So since I built
Yeah,
social media since Black Planet and MySpace, I
yeah,
knew what you put on your feed, right? Who you follow is essentially what you plan on consuming.
that's
And so
right.
I wanted to make sure I was consuming the right content. And just to kind of bring our connection full circle, I I was, looking for trainers. I was like, who are the best automotive trainers? I mean, of course, I connected with Andy Elliott and some of those guys. I wanted, yeah, Andy Elliott, because I found him on YouTube. And then
Mm-hmm.
I saw this guy. He kept talking about video all the time, and I was like, oh yeah, that I connect with that. And really, this was the first time I've seen like training directed towards salespeople. As I'm looking around on most of the training platforms, were like, oh, are you a superstar GM, or are you,
Mm-hmm.
you want to get in a 20 group? And I'm thinking like, well, how does one become a superstar GM, and who's helping people with that? And
Yeah.
I'm literally like on LinkedIn, and I started seeing some videos that you were making, and you had a whole different like kind of branding and everything. It looked like the front of like a Jeep or whatever, like, and the way you were directing the content, I felt like I was in a training session with you, and I was learning a new skill, right? Or I was enhancing what I already knew about the skill of creating video and connecting with people via video. So I said, I'm gonna connect with this guy. So as I saw a couple, then I said, okay, connect. So we became like connected. I guess that's what they call it on LinkedIn, a
Yeah, we're
connection.
connected, baby. Yeah.
So, right after we connected, and I was used to getting bing, you get a message when you connect to somebody on LinkedIn, but it's always an ad. It's like it's like a set
Okay.
ad, and a set ad be like it's always something like, hey, thank you for connecting with me.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my product. Let me know when you want to talk about my product. So this is how vendors like kind of like interact on LinkedIn. And
Yeah.
it was really weird to me because I'm like, don't you think I know that that was auto triggered? And maybe some people didn't, but again, I've been on social medias for since like '07 or '08, so I knew about
Yeah.
these things. And I get a message from you within an hour, and I go and I look at the message, and it was literally a video of you introducing yourself, and I'm just waiting for you to sell me something during the introduction. And the craziest thing ever happened. I never got a pitch in the video. You were just literally using the video to introduce yourself, and it was so impactful to me that it like drew me in to where I wanted to be like, oh, I'm going to respond to him with a video, like, but I wasn't quite there from an advancement standpoint yet.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the first time you had showed me something, and even someone on social media has showed me something to do with video that was unique. And that was literally having a standard response, but using video to do it. So, talking about driven by intelligence, that was quite an intelligent way to respond to all your LinkedIn connections.
Man, thank you. I mean, so much there's so much to impact. Your story is literally a podcast in itself because it's a story that so many of us connect with. Like I didn't know. That's why I love having, great connections and even friends on here because it's like I don't know what it is about being on here. It just starts bringing out things that I had no idea, or maybe I wasn't listening good enough, or I just forgot. But because I'm a military brat as well, my father was military. Now, what branch was your father? The leader that you're talking about. What did he serve? What?
My father was in the army.
So he was in the
Yeah,
army. All
my
right.
mom, my
Well,
mother was in the army too. So they were both
but what?
non-commissioned officers in the army. And one of my early, jobs or tasks or duties or chores was like I ironed uniforms, I shined boots,
Yeah.
like and I embraced that aspect. And people always ask me like, why did you go in the military? And I just think business was calling me and calling me and
Yeah.
calling me since I was a kid, and so, I wanted to be true to that and kind of lock into business.
Yeah, and then you moved every 3 years. Now, do you operate on military time? Does Army operate?
Oh
Because
yeah, yeah, I operate on
me.
military time.
Look,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, even part of military time is, is this. If you're on time, you're late. If you're early, you're
Yep.
on time, right? And so
Yep.
like that was my thing. I always wanted to be like 5 minutes early, 10 minutes early. But as a young kid, you never really know the power of that. But fast
Yep.
forward today, now that I have that discipline locked in, I'm like the type of person that I'm the first in and the
Yep.
last out, right? Like I use leader that leads from the front. Being vocal. I remember
Yeah.
like my dad brought me out to a PT session when I was like 16 years old, and he
Mm-hmm.
was like, "Yeah, if you think you're in shape, let's see if you can keep up with these soldiers." And it was like 5 a.m. We get out there and we're PTing, and as we start actually going around, running around the track, soldiers were like pushing me like, "Oh, you think you're hot stuff, huh? Don't you feel like?" And so like I was integrated into a lot of those things early.
Man, that's so, and so because I did Toastmasters. I don't even know how many of those are out, and I did it back in, it was like 2010, when a good friend from up north came on down and introduced me to that, him and LA and them. But Toastmasters, it's for anybody that's listening to this, it's about public speaking to help you get there. And I was so nervous. I mean, they met at 5 a.m. I go down there. I'm in Jackson, Tennessee at the time, and I talk, and very similar to your background. I was saying that I'm a military brat. I lived in England, I lived in Turkey, I lived in New Hampshire, I lived in, and they said something to me that I want to ask you. They were like, they said, "Man, Duran," they said, "What did that do to you in terms of how you connect with people? Because did it make you detach from friends? Because you got to think how many friends we would have that at any given moment your parents are going to tell you, hey, we about to be up out of here, we got
Right,
orders,
right.
we're about to." And I was telling them, I said, I never, it didn't crush me to that point because I knew what my dad, my parents had to do. I said, but what it allowed me to do is be able to connect with people all over the globe like never before, like
Sure.
every culture, every race. Even today, I'm so appreciative of my parents and my father for being being who he was and being in the military, because it gave me the exposure that most people don't get to have. Because I remember cousins, I come back to Kansas City, my cousins would be like, hey, daddy, why he talk like that? Because I didn't sound like them. I
You
sound
didn't
like a
have the
little dude
accent.
from,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I came back from
Well, you know what
England.
they
I'm all
say, Duran. They
polished.
say, you know what they say. They say you gotta, if you're in the military or you're a military brat, you better learn how to make friends pretty quickly. And
Yeah.
that was one of the first things that I kind of like latched onto is
Mm-hmm.
making friends, not just on the base but off the base as well. But I remember a guy. That I'm still friends with today.
Mm-hmm.
We were boys in Georgia. He left. His parents just moved. I didn't even know he left or where he went. Um, we ended up, I ended up in Germany for my third time. So this is where when
Mm-hmm.
I graduated high school in Germany. So for my third time in Germany, and I remember I went out for like the football tryouts,
Mm-hmm.
and Kevin, my good friend Kevin, was out there trying out for football too, and we lost it. We was like, "Yo, what's up, man? Oh, I didn't even know you were here." And we were immediately like, like
Yep.
good. It didn't matter. It was like us against 7 billion people at that point. But I mean, it allows you to connect early. It allows you to connect to a multitude of different people and really to grow your emotional intelligence quite rapidly. And I think like more than if you just kind of like lived and grew up in one city your whole life, right? And I think like that's one of my emotional intelligence grew dramatically. Like, just being able, I mean, honestly, you get in scenarios and situations where you're communicating with people and you don't speak the same language. So,
Yep.
you're kind of like speaking the international human language of kindness and care and hey, I'm in need because I'm trying to find something. You're from here. I respect, the fact that I'm in your homeland. How do I get to this? How do I get on this train, for instance, right? And so like
Yeah.
you learn so many things, and this was before I might be aging myself, but before social media and all of that.
Yep.
So
No.
there's that.
You were talking about emotional intelligence, and I love that.
Sure.
And so the question is, when it comes to emotional intelligence, how are you using that as a leader with your team, especially given everything that's going on right now in this world, as I had posted earlier? But talk to us about how you're using emotional intelligence to help get the best out of your people.
Yeah, sure. Part of this thing, my journey, started in traditional corporate retail, working for these companies that may focus more on the employee than the metric, and the feelings than the result. And you don't really see that a lot in automotive, but I'll tell you, well, it's not the traditional way of
Mm-hmm.
automotive. I don't want to crucify the whole
Yeah.
industry based on. But I will say there are leaders out there who will kind of focus on their people, right? Like, how are my people doing today? So a daily check-in is important. We're using a 9 a.m. Check-in every morning. We're gonna have at least two. If I get a chance to do the 9, the midday, and then the 5 p.m., then I'll do all three. But more than likely, we're going to get two check-ins in there where we get the bulk of people, salespeople. And honestly, if you do a check-in and there's one person there, right? Like these check-ins at 9 a.m., they're very important for my team. This 8:30 sales meeting, you know,
I like
maintain
that.
that traditional action and keep doing that in the car business, but just make sure it's impactful, right? It can't be a beat down session. It has to be an
Yeah.
uplift session. And usually what these 9 a.m. meetings look like is like, hey, how we doing today? What are we working on? What customers do you have? What opportunities do you have
Mm-hmm.
that we need to help you with today, right? Like, how many appointments do you have, and how many are confirmed, right? And these are just standard
Yep.
metrics that are used in the car business, but really how you ask them is important, right? Because it's their book of business, right? Like, let's just say we took all the salespeople out. Good luck, doing triple digits next month in your store, right? So let's be honest. That they're driving the traffic with the phone calls, the text, the
Mm-hmm.
emails, and the video. And I have a process that what I call is how they approach their task is called PET V, right? So it's phone, email, text, video, right?
Oh
Each
man.
lead needs to
What?
get all four of those touch points hit.
I like
PET
that.
V. And really, when you had this expectation to really bring it home about emotional intelligence and land this plane on this point, when you're really asking the type of intense work that we're asking, right? The type of level of
Mm-hmm.
concentration, you're helping somebody solve a real life problem, like a big problem. Like, you're asking this of your team. Then you need your first customer as a leader needs to be your salespeople, right? Like, my first customer is my team, and I want to make sure my customer, my first customer, is treated well so that they can go out and smile for my customer. How are you going to ask your people to go out and smile for your leads and your consumer, your retail customer that's coming in the door, when you're beating them up in the back room at the
Yep.
8:30 Saturday morning sales meeting? Okay, so all my leaders, I do challenge you to do a better job of connecting with your people on the level that they want to be connected on, right? Like, there was a time when we would talk about, like, how much money do you want to make? That was kind of like one of the first questions somebody asked me. And I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I want to make $100,000, because as
Yeah.
you
All I could
watch it
get.
on Instagram, and they're like, oh yeah, $100,000. How do you get to $100,000, right? Like, so 250 is the new 100 grand in my world. But
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you this: if you're going to get there, wherever you're trying to get to those benchmarks, you really need to see from an individual standpoint where your people want to be, right?
Yeah.
Like, where do you want to be? They may not be here, for $250,000, 100, 200,000. They may not be here for that. They may
Yep.
be here for something as simple as being able to move out of their parents' basement, right? And so, like, when you know the why behind the what, then you need to help them get to that goal by connecting with them on a regular basis
Yep.
on how are we doing. We, because we're partners in this, right? Me and my sales people, me and my team, even that could be my service advisor in the lane, right? That's a salesperson too. So let's really stop this whole separation between service and sales. This is my team, and everybody I interact with, from the lot attendant to the all the way up to myself, whatever that may be, right? Like you really need to connect with them on the level they want to be connected on, and pour into those things that are important to them. It may be a certain dollar amount for me. It
Mm-hmm.
may be, I bought my first home. Now I want to buy a beach house next. They may not be there, right? And
Yeah.
how you going to help them? How are you going to help them buy their first new car? Remember how you started, not where you are today, but as leaders, you need to remember how you started. When I came into this business, I had 20 years in traditional corporate retail, but I never bought a new car off the showroom floor before. So one of the
Mm-hmm.
first things I did was, buy my now wife the first family car off the showroom floor, brand new. And then I bought myself my first brand new car off the showroom floor. But like my goals now, right? Like they're cool, right? When you're talking about getting to $1 million, but really the real grind is that first 100 grand, guys. Like let's really
Mm-hmm.
focus on that's where the real work is at, right? Like that's where the real transition happens. That's where the magic is. That's where you need to be emotionally connected to your team, helping them get there, because that's kind of like that Eminem struggle.
Yep.
That song when he was coming up, and you only got one shot. Like you got to get them in that mindset and focus like on that level, not necessarily on a level that you are now as a leader in this business, but more like how do you remember what it was like? Remember when you stepped in that? I remember I stepped into a puddle of water and I said, I'm never going to be less than number one again. Because back then, number one got to park behind the building with the managers, and I was like, I ain't never going to be less than number one again because I can't afford to buy a new pair of shoes. And I just stepped in a big puddle of ice. Where was that? Where's that pain point? Let's check back into that when we're talking to our people and understand that's what they are, and that's what
Mm-hmm.
those are the things that they want you to help them overcome. Not, they don't really care about your new watch. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
let's keep it honest when we're talking about emotionally connecting with our people.
Man, that's so good because what I was thinking about as I was hearing you speak, and I was like, man, he's so on point with this because it made me think. I don't know of a single dealer that I serve or any dealership that I don't serve that I see out there that has a very high CSI. I don't even say CSI, but they have a very high customer feedback, whether it's either through Google reviews, whether it's through the OEMs, whatever. But I've yet to see one that has a really high mark there, but has really poor employees, like in terms of how they're feeling and the energy when you're there and what you see, their turnover. It's almost like, to your point, they go hand in hand. So what I'm hearing you say, some of the dealerships that, and I hope they lean into this and what you said, some dealerships might be struggling right now. I'm talking about they are going through it. It's like they're losing salespeople left and right. Their inventories got messed up, and it's just they're losing money and it's hurting. And what I'm hearing you say is get back to get back to your people, because going through your people is going to be what ultimately gets you through your customers, and that's what's going to help that flow keep moving more and more. So I hope leaders listening to this is such a great reminder, because I know like I've learned so many lessons on this, that like Rashawn, when I would get, I'm not going to say I get down, but let's say you get kind of behind a little bit as a leader. I was that leader when things got behind, that I get that phone out. I literally push everybody out the way and I'm going. Like, I'm gonna call every customer. I'm gonna text the customer. I'll start talking wild to my team. I don't need y'all. If y'all not gonna work hard, I'll do it myself. And I was young, and back then I just didn't know what I didn't know. And it's good to hear you give that reminder, because I think so many people need to hear it in a world of chaos. And this leads into that next point that we were talking about before we hit record, which goes into parlaying this into culture. So how do you have the emotional intelligence, you have your daily check-ins, and I heard you talk about your team meetings at 8:30 and then your check-ins at 9. I love that. So what is this doing for your culture? Like, what does a winning culture look like for your store, and what you recommend?
A winning culture for me looks like, you know, it's a process of constantly giving back, right? It's
Yeah.
constantly reaching back and pulling people forward. I don't allow my team to talk about transactions or I need to close a deal today. I need to sell somebody. I need to get a
Oh
car
man.
out. Like it's not about that. To me, it's about how many people can we help today? How many people did you help today? How can you help someone today? And what can I do to support you? And I think as leaders, we really need to shift the narrative a little bit. Like you were
Hmm.
saying, I mean, the first thing we're going to do when numbers are down is start picking up the balance sheet, P&L. How much money am I spending on ads? How much money am I spending
Yep.
out there? Look at my inventory. Am I turning the cars at the right age? Like, come on, guys. Like, really, go back to your people. Go back to your people, right? Like, because are you helping them in their effort to help the customer? One thing that I want to say specifically from a culture standpoint that I do, I know it's a tradition to cut a tie when a new salesperson sells their first car.
Yeah.
Newsflash, that might be their only tie that they've ever owned. Okay, especially in this modern workforce, right? Like they might have only bought a tie just for this job. So you just cut that tie, and then on Saturday morning meeting, and then Monday you're like, "Hey, where's your tie?" So I
Yeah.
started this new tradition back when I first became a sales manager. I was actually the floor manager when I was doing this. When you sell your first car, I will cut your tie, but I will give you a tie as well, right?
Oh, I
Like I
like
give you
that.
one of my ties that I have, purchased along the way or got in the journey. And then it's like instead of me walking around shining in Italian tie and all of that, like I start looking around, I'm like, hey, that tie looks pretty cool. Like, where'd you get that tie? And they're like, you gave it to me. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. So, I mean, I really implore our leaders to kind of think outside the box because they grow up with this new modern workforce grew up in a different time than us. Like I didn't have a phone at work with social media on it, just like and they have so many distractions in their way, but they can go to they can go to Rome on their phone. They can go to Barcelona, Spain on their phone. We
Yeah.
couldn't do that. So we had to make the money. I mean, I had a poster of a Lamborghini on the wall. I haven't put the Urus in the driveway yet, but it's on my bucket list, right? But
Yeah.
they can see they've been watching Lamborghini Urus drive up and down, on Instagram their whole lives. So, really you need to think outside the box as leaders if you want to shift culture and really kind of have like kind of appeal to this modern workforce. And the way that I do that is I want to see them shine like me, right? It doesn't matter if
Hmm.
I'm wearing a Rolex or what type of watch I'm wearing. I'm like, hey, what kind of watch is that? That's cool. And I don't care
Yeah.
what they say. They could say it's a Nixon, a Citizen, a Swatch. I'm like, that's a cool watch. I like the color, right? Like I give more compliments than I want to get. And I
Ooh.
think that's part of culture that we need to do as leaders from the top down if you want a winning culture in your store and in your team. So as you're taking something away, you should definitely be adding some value there as well.
So this is good because when you think about the culture and then a winning culture, one that's not focused on transaction but focused on giving an experience, focused on honesty, all these great things that you're talking about. One key thing is the measurables because I know there's those leaders that I'm not going to say that they're not intentional with their people, but they are much more data focused, number focused. You know, those spreadsheet, they got it out here and it's not about who that person is, it's about what those numbers say. How do you balance between that, and then what are some of the key measurables maybe that you and your management team look at to coach your team up in a positive way rather than maybe looking at those numbers to look for reason to get rid of people?
Absolutely. So when you're looking at helping people, I want to help my team,
Yeah.
and I'm on the floor. I'm closing deals. There may be a better closer on this planet. I just haven't met that person, so I know I'm the best closer in my building, and so I want to
Hey.
be in front of the customer. And anytime I
That's
I, I
good.
utilize EMI or early manager involvement,
Mhm.
um, the first thing I want to do is introduce myself. I tell my people, please do not say this is my manager. Please do not give them a title. When I come over, I introduce myself and I say, "How you doing? My name is Rashawn. I'm here to help." And I shake their hand and I
Yeah.
sit down across from them because that's the culture that we want to have in the store. Is a culture of helping. Now, my biggest metric that I like to look at is how many showroom visits closed as sales, right? Like
Yeah.
that's one thing I think. Like we always talk about appointments, appointments shown, right? How many appointments closed? How many visits did you have today, and how many of those were you able to convert into sales right away, right? Like I remember, and I don't these aren't like this is what I believe. These aren't like stats. I don't believe in quoting stats because I don't really I didn't go and do the research. I'm not a statistician,
Mm-hmm.
but I am a leader and an operator in a business. And so one of the stats that I remember is that a customer will will go to 4 to 5 dealerships before they make their purchase. And what was the difference in the first dealership and the second dealership and the third? They heard something different probably at every dealership that they went to. It's just by the time they got to the fourth or fifth, they were worn out. And they was like, all right, fine, I think the same car, so
Just throw
I'll
in the
just buy
towel.
it here. You know what I mean? And so like
Yeah.
now the new stat is and what I share or what I believe and that I share with my team is that point nine. They're
Yeah.
gonna go to point nine dealerships before they make their purchase. Why? They're gonna shop 3 or 4 websites. They're gonna shop your manufacturer website. They're going to look at your third party websites. They're going to be on Car Gurus, Cars.com. They're going to be on Auto Trader. They're going to come to your website. They're going to go to that guy's website all the way around. There'll be people that live in Maryland shopping dealers in Texas, and it blows my mind when I see people doing this, but it's the power of the internet, right? And
Yeah.
so when they come to your dealership, right, you want to be actively intent on number one, uncovering the true objection, and then number two, answering that question because the
Yeah.
objective is a question. You can get down. A lot of people know how to get down to the true objection, but do
Mm-hmm.
you actually answer it in a form of I understand that question or that concern. Here's an answer. Don't sweep it under the rug. Like address it, right? And so that's why it's so important to close to track how many visits actually close. And the reason why it's point nine is because there's a contingent of people out there that are actually buying a car without stepping into the dealership. So you really have to start thinking again out of the box thinking as a leader today. But that's my key metric, but also obviously how many appointments that we actually set get
Mm-hmm.
confirmed, right? And then I think when you confirm your appointments, you have a higher probability of them showing. And then when they show, now that's when the real like action starts, right? That's when that movie time, like, hey, director says action, and you
Yeah.
really gotta land that scene. You gotta close that scene, and that's why it's so important for me to know how many actual visits converted into sales today.
I love that you share that about the measurables and how you're bringing all this together from the check-ins to the culture to, I mean, this is great, the emotional intelligence. And so, speaking of intelligence, what about this artificial intelligence? I mean, it's gone. I look up and I'm signed up on all these different AI newsletters. And now it's gotten to the point I'm like, I can't even keep up with this. It's to the point where we just need to know that it's going to be an ever evolving thing, and we are in we're in the AI. I forget. I heard somebody say, there was the industrial time, right? But now we are like in the AI revolution. So
You in the metaverse?
yeah. So talk to us about your AI or digital tools. Like, how's that
Yeah,
working for you and your team?
yeah. I think listen, when you can invest in them, I know it gets expensive to do that, but I'll tell you, AI in itself is to me a bit of a I mean, look at the name. It's an oxymoron if you really think about it, right? It's artificial
Artificial,
intelligence. It's not
right?
real intelligence, but whatever. But okay, that's just me kind of like doing my Michael Scott thing. But when it comes down to AI, I think it's important to be using them wisely and strategically, right? Like you
Hmm.
you you just can't invest in everything. You got to invest in tools, smart tools that make sense for where your business is right now, and what you're trying to accomplish. But really, it's not that new. It's just popular now, and it's starting to expand its reach into sales, and especially kind of newer in our industry. But I mean, you pick up your DoorDash, you pick up your your Uber, all of those things. They've had AI has been embedded in our lifestyle for a long time. Your social media platforms have been using AI. iPhone will listen to everything you're saying and start
Yep.
pulling up search results for those things. So you're not going to be able to get away from it, but also just don't be afraid of it, right? Like
Yeah.
just you don't have to run into it and throw all your money at it either as dealers and as salespeople. Listen, when you invest in a young team, one of the benefits is they're probably already like well immersed into Chat GPT
Yeah.
and other sources, Gemini with Google, for instance, right? Like,
Hmm.
get away from the buzzwords and what everybody is talking about is popular, and figure out what's going to work best for your business,
Yeah.
and use a be strategic, as I was saying about it. So we wanted to get more video content out. We wanted to be able to get more engagement from our customer that way. So what we really did was we looked at Matador AI.
Yeah.
Now none of these AIs are perfect, and just me saying the name, they didn't cut me a check for that. As a matter of fact, we're paying them
We'll
every
have to
month.
work that in. But yeah.
But find a way to get the point of the whole AI revolution is to find a way to get your customer to interact on the space and the level they want to interact on, right?
Yeah.
Like nobody's really picking up the phone. I'm seeing who's actually calling before I'm picking up, and if it's spam likely, forget about it. I don't really check emails every 5 seconds, but I'll tell you if my text goes off,
Yeah.
that's the first thing I'm gonna do is pick up and look and see who's texting me. And I'm more likely to read that text than read an email. So if you can get, a text message across as opposed to just an email and a phone call, maybe start there. I know I said pet V, but really that text is the one that like kind of grabs their attention. Now, with that being said, think of video in the same way. What are people doing in their leisure, their spare time, or even if they're building a company or a brand? They're on social media. So make sure your video, right, is reaching them in the same way as videos are on social media, right? Make sure your formatting looks similar to that. Make sure when you're creating these videos and editing these videos that it looks and feels like something they just processed on social media. It shouldn't be over engineered, but it should trigger a familiarity. It should trigger
Yeah.
that in their senses, and you'll have a higher chance of engagement. So that's a little bit of a high level, kind of like thing I wanted to share with you guys. But how you execute that, you got to drill down into that a little bit further. But I will tell you, hey guys, DM me, okay? DM me. I can help you, but we can talk about how I can help you. But if you direct message me, I'd love to share more about that. If you're interested out there, dealers, how can you make your content relate to your end user
Yeah.
as well as social media does, right? Because that's what you really need to tune into.
Oh, this is so good. So let's bring it home to that last question that I've been waiting to ask for so long
Sure.
because I know there's so much that you bring to this show and this table, and we could talk probably for 10, 12 hours. I look forward. I mean, we got to do an automotive event. We got to do an experience together and get you on stage because the industry needs you. But the
Thank you for
question
that.
I have is what do you want people, that are especially listening to this now and in the future, what do you want people to remember the most about you? Like, what do you want them to feel and what they can take away from
Sure.
hearing you speak today?
Listen, what I want you to remember and what I want you to know is that, as I said earlier, you are the talent, you are the commodity. So, young people out there, you're getting into the game and you're like, hey, I want to get into sales or I want to get into automotive, or I want to be a manager. Guess what? There's no manuals, there's no standard operating procedure in order to how to get there, right? There are some larger dealer groups that have training platforms and pathways, but traditionally automotive, you got to look at it from an entrepreneurial standpoint. And I'll tell you, your career is what you need to invest in most. Don't try to have, they say, oh, and I'm going to borrow this. I don't know what the guy's name is, but I saw it on social media. He said, um, so many people out there, they're trying to figure out, um, you know, how can I get to where I want to get to? And they're looking for someone to follow. But guess what? That path probably hasn't even been carved out yet.
That's good.
So make sure you know that you're the commodity, you're the brand, and you are the investment. Here's what I was going to say. There's a misnomer out there that, well, there's something that said that if you want to be successful, if you want to be a millionaire or wealthy, I should say, then you would have seven streams of income. I mean, I read this back in the 90s about Oprah, so people are still saying it today, and I'm like, okay, seven streams of income. While I have a popsicle stand over here, I trade. I buy the candy bars for 50 cents and sell them for 75. Okay, great. Listen, you have those seven streams of income. Those seven streams of income come into play when you already become wealthy, because that's how you maintain your wealth and expand your wealth. But you have to really focus on that singular thing, and you have to have a singular focus. And one thing about me, I said when I came in this industry, I said in 5 years I'll be a GM, in 10 years I'll be a dealer. I mean, my second year in the industry, I had just got promoted. I would say the beginning of my third year, I had just got promoted to sales manager. I bought my own ticket to NAMAD, National
Hey,
Association of Minority Auto Dealers, and
yeah.
I was able to interact with you face to face for the first time. And I will tell you, I used something that I learned from you the first time you sent me that video when we connected on LinkedIn. I
Hmm.
figured out everybody I wanted to connect with at NAMAD,
Yeah.
and I made a personalized video introducing myself, telling them how great I think that they are and what the contributions they've made to this industry, and how excited I was to meet them at NAMAD.
What?
And I do remember at least one dealer was like, hey, he bumped this guy. He said, hey, that's the guy that sent me the video. Remember that video I was talking about? And this was 2022. So, guys, craft your career. Like, make sure your career is the number one thing you invest in, right? And then once you have more opportunity to invest in other things, that's when you go down multiple streams of income. But always make sure that that singular focus is your career, or you're driving all of your resources through that. Because the idea of, I have multiple focus, I have multiple
Hmm.
foci. I'm focusing on this, and this. I got multiple priorities. That's a modern Western philosophy. If you really break it down, you need to focus on one thing, keep the main thing the main thing. When I said I want to be a dealer in 10 years, that's my direction that I'm going in.
And you're gonna get it. And I'm excited, man. I'm gonna be right there alongside you. I'm gonna be at that. I can already visualize it, man. I can see the ribbon cutting. You know what I mean? I can see the gold scissors, and
Well,
be
talking
right
about
there
that,
looking
Duran, I
good
think
too.
people need to realize that, like, if you really want to become if you really want people to view you as something, you need to become it inside first, and
Yeah.
then as a goal, you have no issue living and walking in that light, right? When you can look in the mirror and say, "That's what I want to do." They say, "Oh, keep it private until you arrive," and that's
Yeah.
not necessarily the way to go. When you speak it out in public, the people around you start holding you accountable to those things, and that helps you, and they start boosting you up and lifting you up. And I think that that's something that we can actually enhance in our culture by making that shift, that mental shift. Speak it out loud. You want to be a general manager? Tell people, and don't be afraid when they say you can't do it. Just go out and continue to execute. But remember, you are your first business and your first investment.
Oh my gosh, this is so good, man. I cannot thank you enough. And I knew you said you were gonna bring it home, and you brought it home, and I thank you for that, because it's like I can feel the excitement inside of me, just things that I want to do after this, and even getting back to the videos, to know that it made that kind of impact. And I got to be honest, in the last 30 days, the life has been so wild with in a good way, but I've not been able to send out near as many personalized videos to people. So for those of you on LinkedIn that heard Sean speak, like, man, where's Durant's video
You got
again?
some video messages to send
After
out, Duran.
this, I'm gonna go back, and I'm gonna go back through my connections. Now, not the spam ones. I'm gonna get a lot of spam ones that are trying to sell me stuff, or trying to get me to sell their products. But the leaders, you know, you are. I will go back. You will get a message from me, a video note, And you mentioned this a second ago, but if people really do want to connect with you, is the best way? What's the best way that they can contact you and connect with you if they want to?
I would say right now, connect with me on LinkedIn. I kind of trimmed down a lot of my socials just because, I'm in a rebrand. I've done so many things in my career and in my lifestyle. But yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn, Rasean Comeaux, my name, Rasean Comeaux. And I got a page out there, Car Snobs. That's my Instagram. But yeah, I'll tell everybody this. When you reach out to me, expect a message back, right? Like, don't reach out to me thinking you're not going to get a message back, even if I send you a message back saying, hey, thanks for this automated promotion, but
Yeah.
unless you can tell me something about myself, I'm not interested. And every once in a while, vendors will direct message me, and they'll be like, hey, Rashawn, I'm here to change your lifestyle in 20 minutes. And I'm like, oh, now you got my attention because that's my tagline, right? Like when I was selling cars, I would say, I'm going to change your lifestyle in 20 minutes. And now I just use that as a way to tell my people that, hey, my people who are coming up in this business that are salespeople wanting to be sales managers, GSMs, GMs, want to realize their true potential in this industry. I usually kind of come out with something like that because I'm working on a platform right now where you'll be able to engage with me on a short, kind of 20-minute interval and on a regular basis, and that whole engagement is designed to help you advance your business and your career. So that's something I'm working on right now. More details to come in the future, Duran. But I want to thank you for inviting me on this podcast. I want to thank you for this is my first automotive podcast, so I was hyped to do it. And it means the world to me to be connected with someone as like yourself and to see you continue to pour into others in this industry and not just looking at who's at the top and talking to those people at the top. I mean, I think like it's always the success is in the journey. Like keep that in mind. Anybody out there, the success is in the journey, not the destination, right? Like that's where the excitement is. When you can't put, hey, success in your GPS and somehow you're gonna make it there, right? Like
Hmm.
that whole aspect, turn left. When you turn left, when your GPS tells you to turn left, you enhance your chances of getting there on time and safely. When you turn right, when your GPS tell you to turn left, you might end up in a pond. But that's important. Success is in the journey, guys, not the destination. So enjoy that part of it on the way on the come up. And I think that that's something I
Man,
like to take away.
this this just went from driven by intelligence to driven by love, man. Like this is
Hey,
beautiful.
man,
So
thank you, man. I really appreciate it. Again, driven by intelligence. I know you're doing great work out there, and I'm just happy to contribute.
appreciate you, Rashawn. Until next time,
All
appreciate
right,
you.
guys, DM me anytime. I will change your lifestyle in 20 minutes. I am the influencer. Thank you, Duran. Let's go.
Appreciate you.